First, I want to thank Steve. Thanks for making the photocopies. And we're looking at the Hakdama of the Mesifta to Masechtas Kodshim. And we're on page Yud Ches. And we're talking about Shalom B'mkomo. And we had a machlokes that we discussed on Thursday about what's called the Zrika Shalom B'mkomo. And the upshot of that discussion was that if the Zrika was either above, on the top part of the Mizbech, when it should have been on the bottom, or vice versa, we have a machlokes whether Shmei Zrika or Lav Shmei Zrika. And according to that Tana who says that it's Kimkomo Domi, and it does have the status of a Zrika, so that would mean that Niskapru Abayim, that even though the Zrika was Shalom Komo, the entire Mizbeach, as we discussed in great length yesterday on Thursday, is one entity, and it generates kapara. So that it was in the wrong place on the Mizbeach. We'll see exactly what that means, that we didn't cover yet. And if you hold Kim Komo Dummy, it means that Niskapru Abayim, they don't have to bring a second kapara. We said that that was not enough to be mata the basar, neither for Achilas Mizbeach, nor for Achilas Adam, on him or the Bailan, and for that we needed Zrika L'mkomo according to everyone. But one man the would hold that the Bailan we yotze with a kapara and the carbon is kosher, the ol shen chova, they don't have to repeat and replace the carbon. The other man the says lav kim komotam. That means that the carbon is not a machaper. We gave a few exceptions. We spoke about a possibility of collecting the dam. And the question is whether you could do another zrika on the same with the same dam on a different place and get it right this time, or we discussed the case where there's still dam in the tzavar as a result of the shchita, and he has enough dam nefesh to collect into the mizrach and do a replacement zrika and get it right on the right makom. These were some of the discussions we had on Yom Chamishi. Now, at this point, we want to discuss the opinion of Rashi as to what Shalom B'mkomo is all about. Domim shedinam ninasim lemalo. So in other words, the Mizbech is divided into two parts, and had he done the proper Zrika, he would have done it lemala. V'nasnan michatzia Mizbech ulamata. Oh, the reverse. Dinam ninasim lemata v'nitnu lemala. So those are the first two cases that according to Rashi come under this classification called Zrika Shalom B'mkomo, and that's so far pretty straightforward. Then Rashi adds another case. Domim shedinam linosem b'tzada mizbeh. Now we have different sides in the mizbeh, and very often the Zrika should be done on a tzada mizbeh where there's a yesod, and the dam would come down and fall down onto the yisod. But nasna b'tzad she'ein bo yisod. He put it, let's say, on the Mizrahi side, and there's no yisod. Is then Rashi says you might have a havamina that's also called a zrika shalom b'mkomo. And if you hold kimkomo dummy, there is a kaparas abaylam. No, Rashi insists, and we'll see another sheet in a minute, that in this case, where it was shalom b'mkomo to the second degree, it was shalom k'neged ha'yisod. That's an automatic psul according to everyone. Again, we're not saying that we exclude the possibility of doing a second zrika, but at least as far as this zrika, if that's all we have on the table today, that for sure is shalom b'mkomo dummy, and there's no kaparas habayim. And this is a Rashi in Masechtas Vachim Adaf Chava. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a record here of the Shitas HaTosfos. And because we're just doing a little bit of an introduction here, we'll suffice by saying that other Rishonim disagree with Rashi, and they hold that even Shalom K'neged HaYisod comes under the general machlokes about Shalom B'mkomo. Okay, now what happens if he was zorik the dam on the wrong mizbeach? Until now, we've talking about a zrik on the wrong side of the mizbeach or the wrong half of the mizbeach. Let's say you have dam that was in a chatas primus was meant to have a zrika on the mizbeach hapnimi in the heichal, and instead he was zorik the dam on the mizbeach hachitzoni, or vice versa. Matono shedinam linasin al mizbeach hapnimi v'nasin al mizbeach hachitzon is nechlaku bahem arishonim im gamhen nemru bahen din kim komodom. That man the Omer who was more lenient and validated as far as kaparas hakarbon the carbon shalom b'mkomo because it's kim komodom. How far would he go? Would he even go as far as to say that it's kim komodom on a different mizbeach? And in the footnote here, he quotes the Shita of Rashi. Where is it? Just 1 second. First, he starts with the Shita of Tosas. And Tosas says that he doesn't understand the Shita of the Rambam. He doesn't mention the Rambam, who maintains that this is also called Kim Komodom. Meaning, if you hold Shalom Kim Komodom. Even though it's on the wrong mizbeach. And Tosas says, how could that be? If it's on the wrong mizbeach, then clearly you cannot say kim komodom. And the fundamental machlokas here is between Tosas and the Rambam. What's the status of shalom kim komodom according to the Madhyam kim komodom? Are we making it into a zrika kim komo magically? Perhaps through the power of the mizbeach? If that be the case, then Tosas is correct. You can't say kim komodom when it's on the wrong mizbeach. This mizbeach is an entity, and the other mizbeach is a separate entity. Everybody's going to have to agree that shalom kim komodom. The Rambam apparently had a different view. He understood that kim komodom means that we don't require makom. That even in shalom makom, it's still called a zrika as long as it was a zrika al gabi mizbeach. And the Rambam wants to expand it to include another mizbeach. As long as you have some mizbeach, and the dam was this kabel on some mizbeach, that's called, according to that mandiyom, kim komodomi, not kim komodomi that we're going to magically make it into its buckle. That we can't do from one mizbeach to another, clearly. But kim komodomi means that it's a valid zrika because the dam reached a mizbeach, and all the mizbeachos in the world have one status. I mean, there are only two, but they all have one status. Now, within the context of the Rambam Shita, that you can have a possibility, according to one man, the Omer Kim Komodami, even from one mizbeach to the other, would that apply in both directions? Meaning, if you're talking about dam that was meant, like a chatas pnimis on Yom Kippur, was meant to be nizrak al dam al mizbeach hapnimim, and instead you was zorik the dam on mizbeach hachitzon, that really touches on the issue of whether mizbeach hachitzon, rates high enough on the pyramid, on the chart of mizbechos to be considered a mizbeach. Again, it's not the pnimi, but it's the mizbeach hanachoshes. It's got a status, and it's a zrika shalom kol. But if, on the other hand, and this is the paradox of it, he took dam that was meant in all chatos to be nizrak al mizbeach hachitzon, and he was zorik it on the mizbeach hapnimi, you would think that's an upgrade. And how much more so should we say, according to that man Yom Kim Komodam, it's valid? Just the opposite is true. And why is that? And here's a Tosas in Tzvachim Daf. We have a new din of psul dam, which has nothing to do with the fact that the mizbeach has this status or that status. It's the right mizbeach, the wrong mizbeach. Forget about all that. Put that all in the back burners. We have a different halacha of psul dam, and that is dam hanichnas lehechal nifsal. You have to realize that if you don't have the right ticket, the entryway, entrance ticket, you didn't buy a ticket to the show, then you become dam posel. In a case of dam, you can't just enter into the heichal. Not everyone has a ticket to enter into the heichal. If it's a chatas primis, then the dam has the okay, and it's got a license to enter into the mizbeach hapnimis. But if you don't have that license, you're a regular run-of-the-mill chatas, and your dam is only given the entrance card into the mizbeach achitzon. Then if you bring the dam into the mizbeach hapnimim, then that passes the dam. So forget about the issue of dam shalom koma. If the zrika is in the wrong place, the dam is possible the very moment you entered into the mizbeach hapnimim. So that's the Shita Satos. So that means that we can disagree with the Rambam on two counts, according to the Shita Satos. First of all, we could hold that in both directions, there's no such thing as shalom and koma from one mizbeach to the other, which means that even if you took down from the mizbeach that was meant and earmarked to the mizbeach hapnimi, took it to the mizbeach hachitzon, Tosfos would still argue that everybody agrees that the covenant is not miskap. But the Rambam would say that in such a case, you know what? The mizbeach hachitzon is also a chashuv mizbeach, and therefore shalom and koma can come. Here Tosfos would disagree with the Rambam, but could understand the Rambam. But the Rambam went too far if he was willing to be machshir the dam that was meant to be earmarked for the mizbeach chitzon into the mizbeach hapnimi, because then argues Tosfos the dam is possible the very moment he enters into the heichal. Forget about the zrika, regardless of the zrika. The Rambam writes that even in this case, it's kimkomo dam, and we don't understand the Rambam. How can the Rambam ignore the fact that he brought dam that had no ticket into the heichal? That itself passes the dam. So here we have a chiddush of one of the achronim to try to explain the Rambam. He says that this answer should be attributed to both the Chafetz Chaim and the Mikdash Dom, the two pillars of the achronim on Kodshim. And he says the following: Gam ba'ofen zeh havi kimikomo dom. According to Madiyom, who says shalom koma kimikomo dom. V'zeh shayach bi'ofanim shebahem domim chitzonim nichnesu leheichal einam nifsolim. He says the following: Nichnes derech Mishubach below derech shar ha'hecha. Unbelievable. The man dug a subterranean ditch. Do you call it a ditch? I don't know. In the Midwest, they have a different name for it. No? You'll see is a ditch. And now he brings the dam of a chatos chitzona into the heichal through this subterranean tunnel. The halacha is that if he didn't take the dam derech shar ha'heichal, but rather through a chatira, the dam is kosher. How does the Mikdash David know such a thing? This is a Rashi not in Zvachim, but a Rashi in Menachos, that the psul of dam is only b'knisa kedar, through the shar. You found a different way of subterranean to bring the dam in, then you don't file it. Wow. Okay, is there any way you can get me the internet on this? So wait a minute. No, these gentlemen would not have to disconnect, right?
You're changing from one hotspot to the other hotspot. It's also cause problems.
Well, no,
No,
he's not on the internet, but
this is, you're connected. I just turned it on and automatically you're connected. So that's the one. Okay.
So I can continue.
Yes.
So I don't have to get nervous about this?
No, because you
it
connected automatically.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay. So we had a chash here of Shalom and Komo that the internet was going to go out, but hopefully, again, it's, they talk about that man should view himself as continuously depending upon Shemayim. So that's the nimshal here is that, we depend upon the internet. I don't believe in the internet from 1 minute to the other, not here anyway. But right now, we're on. So I don't know where Don is. I think he wrote to me that he couldn't come today. I forgot. Anyway, getting back to our discussion, it's an amazing chiddush that you can have dam that's not possible, even though it's dam chitzoni that came to Primi, because it wasn't taken derech hashar. And that's what the Rambam has in mind when he was able to get the dam of a chatas chitzona into the heichal, and he did his rika on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, and if you hold, which is around Psak of Shalom Kimkomo Domi, then the carbon is kosher. How could the carbon kosher be kosher when the dam is possible? The answer is the dam is not possible. We found a technical way of avoiding the psul of the dam. Elo what? It's Shalom Kimkomo. Yeah, but we say on the contrary, he has an upgrade here. Even Tosas would agree that the Mizbeach HaPnimi is an upgrade. But in this case, Tosas says that the dam is possible. So the answer is there's no machlokas here about the psul dam. The Rambam is addressing a case, a hechatimtza, where he was able to circumvent the psul of dam. And now he quotes a shita mekubetzes. As you know, in Kodshim, shita mekubetzes is very, very important. It's published on the daf. Damim achitzonim einam shayochim klal lepnim ulefichach ein omer bahem kim komodam. Now, the shita mekubetzes is not saying what we were hoping he would say, namely that the two mizbachos are completely separate entities, and therefore you can't talk about shalom and komo if it's not on the mizbeach at all; it's on the wrong mizbeach. That's not what he's saying. But rather, he is claiming that there's a separate din in dam, and that's going to apply even in the hechatimtza of the Mikdash David with Rashi in Menachos, when he took it in subterraneous, he was choter instead of derech hashar. And that is that dam chitzoni doesn't belong b'fnim, period. You could not have the dam inside. Now, if we do get cut off, then don't throw in the towel, because I see I'm getting all sorts of messages here on my screen. They're warning me. But you still hear me, right, John? Good. So if we get cut off, what I'm going to try to do is, link up to a different thing, and then I might not be able to rejoin the shir, so I'll have to end the shir and start again. So I'm just saying, don't necessarily give up the shir. Just to review, the Shita Mekubetz holds that there's a separate din that the Mizbeach HaPnimi cannot receive dam that doesn't belong to the pnim, and a dam chitzoni doesn't belong to the pnim. So even if you didn't generate a psul in the dam, the way Tosas was talking, and we can add that hechatimtza, so we circumvented the psul. Nevertheless, you cannot say kimukomo dami, because the dam has no place on the Mizbeach HaPnimi. But if, on the other hand, according to the Shita Mekubetzes, if dam that was earmarked for the Pnimi was to be nizar on the Chitzoni, then according to the Madhyama Shalo Kimkomo Dami would apply even in this case. Even though, again, you and I would say intuitively you're downgrading the dam, but nevertheless, dam that belongs to Pnimi, at the same time, belongs chitzoni. But chitzoni doesn't belong to the pnimi. Even if there would be no psul in the chefetz shel dam, you could not say kimkomo dam. Now, what's the status of the kevesh hamizbeach? We say, and it's an amazing halacha. Waving hello to Don here who joined us, that the kevesh, to some extent, has the status of a mizbeach. It's not just a ramp to facilitate the coins going up to the mizbeach. And therefore, what happens if dam, which was earmarked like in a chatas chitzona for the mizbeach hachitzon, and instead he was zorik the dam on the kevesh? And again, intuitively, you and I would say it's not even a havamina that anyone would say kim komo. What do you mean komo? It's not even on the mizbeach. But yet, according to the shita of Rashi and Tosfos also, it could very well be. No, I'm sorry. Let me go the other way around. We'll start with the Rambam, then we'll go to Tosfos. It could very well be that the kevesh is upgraded to the status of the mizbeach, and therefore, if you hold shelo kimkomo kivikomo, the carbon is kosher, and that indeed is the Rambam's psak. Where is this Rambam? The Rambam is in Hilchos. Second. Just 1 second. I just want to tell you where the Rambam is. In Psuli HaMukdash. That's what I feel. However, Tosfos, for one, goes on record as saying that you cannot apply the principle of Kimkol Adam with regard to the kevesh. So that in certain specific dinim, as we'll soon see, the kevesh is upgraded to the status of a mizbeach, but it's not mizbeach mamish. It has certain external dinim, status of mizbeach, but it's not a mizbeach. You could talk about mizbeach hachitzon vis-a-vis mizbeach hapnimi and vice versa, but don't talk about the kevesh vis-a-vis the mizbeach. That certainly is not bimkomo at all. That zrika doesn't register, and the carbon has to be replaced by another carbon. Matanot shedinam linasein b'mizbeach hachitzon michetzio ulamalam v'nasnam al hayisod nechluku bazeh I amrinan be kimkomo dam. We have halacha kimkomo dami from one side of the mizbeach to the other. But you may recall that we discussed the case of damim that were meant to be placed on the side of the mizbeach where there's the yesod, and instead he put them on the side of the mizbeach where there is no yesod. And we quoted Rashi to the effect that everybody agrees in this case, lav kimkomo. So there's no, according to Madyomer kimkomo, there's no fundamental difference between lamala and lamata, but there is a fundamental difference between that part of the mizbech that has the yesod kenegdo, and the dam will flow down into the yesod, which means that the zrika is related to the yesod, as opposed to the tzara mizbech, the kira mizbech, where there is no yesod. On that side, everybody would agree that that's not kimkomo dami. There's no way you can call that kimkomo dami when the yesod is a major part of the zrika sadam. So that's one mandiyom. Now he tells you that there's a more liberal lenient shita, and that shita would hold that lamal lamata, according to mandiyom kimkomo dami, always applies, even in a case of damim that were meant to be placed on the yesod, or that the dam will reach the yesod, and it didn't reach the yesod, it reaches the kira mizbech. And in the footnote, he tells you that this whole sugya of Shalom Keneged Yisod is analyzed by the Makar Baruch. That's where we could research. Now, everybody agrees that domim that have to be placed on the side of the Mizbech cannot be placed on the Gag HaMizbech. The Gag HaMizbech is a separate entity that's designated for Haktorah, but not for Zrika. And Zrika on the Dam HaMizbech, even if I hold Shalom B'Mkomo, Kimkomo Domi is not a Zrika, and the carbon is possible. Now, the next part of this introduction requires that we learn a sugya Masechta Psachim, which we haven't learned yet, about carbon Pesach, and it also applies perhaps to Chatas HaOf, that it could be that there's no possibility of Shalom Kimkomo Domi in those rare cases. Okay. Now, I know it's getting late, but let's at least have an introduction to the next section of halachas that we want to study in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. And that is Lina and Notes, two categories of psul in karbonos. Dora Kaddish B'Kedushas Haguf, which means Kedushas Mizbeach, Nifsal Belina, Shem Lon HaKodesh, Sha'avar Olav Amud HaShachar, Oshkias HaChama, Nifsal. The carbon becomes possible with Lina. And that would mean if, let's say, for example, it was meant to reach the Mizbech at night and it's already Alos HaShachar, or it was meant to be placed on the Mizbech during the day and we're already after Shkias HaChama, the day is ended. In both those scenarios, we have what's called a psul of Lina. And again, we're going to have an exception to the rule when it's up on top of the Mizbech. But now we're talking about a case where the dam is here, right here on the table, and it's morning, or in the case of evening, and the dam is possible. That's called a psul Lina. He says, what does this psul Lina apply to? Certainly it applies to dam. What about a klisharis? Klisharis also has kedushas haguf. But what we said before is that the psul Lina only applies to kedushas mizbeach. So that even though a klisharis has kedushas haguf, there's no psul Lina because it's not kedushas mizbeach. Now, we mentioned once about Meikir, that Meikir apostle Belina. And you'll ask me why. That's only a klisharis. That's only a klisharis. Kiyar is only a klisharis. But if you recall, we discussed that something is called nitzrach la'akrova. If I need it in order to set up a hakrovas hakarban, for example, without the Kiddush Yadayim Raklayim, the Kohen is completely excluded from Avodah, that becomes part of Kedushas Mizbeach, because I need the Kiyur in order to set up the Avodah on the Mizbeach. And in such a case, we can talk about the Psul Lina in Mei Kiyur. What about Mei Sota? Mei Sota are in a klisharis, they're not on the Mizbeach. Would there be a psul Lina in something that is devoid of Kedushas Mizbeach? And he quotes a Shita the Yerushalmi in Sukkah. Yerushalmi writes, Af me sota nifsolim b'lina. Why? Taimo shall sober any some b'lina mishum she'ein mimenu l'mizbeach. The reason why, in general, something that doesn't have any place, any part on the Mizbeach, doesn't lend itself to psul Lina, and therefore, in the case of Mei Sota, if it doesn't lend itself to Mizbeach, there's no psulina. But yet, the Yushalmi says that there is a psulina even in Meis Sota. Says the Brisker Rav that Mishum Meis Sota He made Kiyah. The Klisharis from which we draw the Mayan for the Chatnas is the Kiyah itself. So Yushalmi now has upgraded the status of Mayan in the Kiyah, even Mayan that's designated not for Mizbeach, meaning for Kiddush Yadayim Reglan, but Mayan that's designated for Meis Sota, Hashkas, to be mixed, with the cloth on which Hashem's name is written, and the Mayim HaMarorim. Hareshadinam shiyu mayim kedoshim v'nifsalu keduchas meikir shalahem shuv ein mayim hakedoshim psulim heim lashkas sota. The status of mayim for ashkas sota is mayim that has kedushas klishares. Which klishares? Kiyar. And once the mayim in the kiyar loses, it forfeits its kedusha l'mizbeach, i.e. the mayim that's designated for Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim of the Kohen, then not only is that mayim excluded from its, 1 second, the other way around. I forgot what I said, but anyway, listen to what I'm saying now. Not only is that mayim sanctified with Kedushas Mizbeach, but even the mayim that I'm going to designate from the Kiyar with regard to Meis Sota, that mayim is likewise considered mayim l'mizbeach, kedushas mizbeach. And if it is so, then that mayim becomes possible with lina. So again, just to summarize, we said that which is in a klisharis and is not kadosh b'kedushas mizbeach is not subject to the psul lina. Why then it made kiyar according to one man the and that's how we paskin is possible possible lina or Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim? The answer is that Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim is also considered like a Kedushas Mizbeach. But what about the mayim of the Meis Sota, which Yushalmi says is also subject to the psul of lina? That's certainly not l'mizbeach. Meis Sota is not put on the Mizbeach in no way how. It can't be used for Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim. It's used for the Mayim HaMarorim. But the answer is it has to be sanctified with Kedushas Kiyar in order for it to be kosher l'Meis Sota. And Kedushas Kiyar is one entity that applies to all the Mayim in the Kiyar as one entity, indivisible. And just like this Kedushas Mizbeach in the mayim that's going to be designated an earmark for Kiddush Yadayim Reglayim, so too this Kedushas Mizbeach on the mayim that's designated for the Meis Sota. Let's just make a note of where we got up to, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. So tomorrow, Mr. Shem will be up to Yud Tes in the daf. Just take a minute to organize myself here. Hopefully this won't affect this.